back your tests. I'm going to review with you the correct answers, but I thought it might be beneficial if you sit with your neighbor just for the next few minutes and see if you can figure out what you did or didn't do. Right or wrong. And if you see that the numbers match, then maybe that's good, and if they don't, figure out why. And remember, it's not just about the numbers, it goes into the numbers. So let's spend just another 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll get ourselves started right here.
Here we are. I would say 4. Yeah. So some people have 4 or 5 people. Are we on now?
I heard that first. I thought you did the same way. It's just a
well, what I think
I do it. I always do it this way.
I know that when like in order to get the patient, they don't have enough for the actualized nutrition. So I just use like that by the mortgage analyze yeah. So at first I get the
It comes back to 15.
So I don't even you have to get
Divided in 37.
well, it's 1 year, he said 12 months. Times the interest rate, times the
I got this wrong. I did it.
like what he said, one year is this. Right, it's 145 days, right? Then you do 124, then you don't touch nothing else, just 1.7.5 interest for 1 year, and then you don't touch nothing, just put it on paper, and then you do the term, 25 years, right? And then
Where is one? What is the one?
when it's at the end of the year, it's 0.
Oh, yeah, with my shirt.
I don't know, I think it's like 150. And then you get paid. You see?
So something's wrong with my calculator because I do exactly the same thing. I get a different
I got it with that. It's not wrong. It's just, did you all get
So
it?
something's wrong with the calculator.
Let's go to the next one. I guess
Okay. Okay, now, what about this? What I think here.
The correct answers.
What are the annual? 36.95.
But I can't even get you to which
All you just do is divide it.
I did a math divided by H with the first year.
everybody, because what's like my goal?
What about this?
Yeah, I'm doing it, but it has to be higher. Like I, so right, it's an inverse, so it has to be higher. You just switch, I think you gotta flip it, you have to divide it the other way.
I don't know, I could like
Right, but how can it be
Look at your chest for like a few minutes and figure out whether you're right or wrong. I want everybody just to see figure out what they think right or wrong.
It's the same as this number.
Let's start filling okay, now.
Six? 185,000. 637,000. But we're still in. That's how I think you did. Yeah, I think you did. 15.
Don't multiply the two.
I agree with you. Oh, wait, it was with the road. I said you did the job times 2. And then you divided it by 42,000. Yeah, that's what it is.
So your answer was 17.
You times the 50,000.
I was telling you, you didn't know how to do it.
No. The 50,000 times 15, you get that.
What was your NOI? I know much.
42. I didn't do 7, 8, or 10.
I'm a $5,000 off. I failed to take something out.
Oh, I forgot a 0.
NOI is 9,500. Wait, what was your NOI? See, we got 84.
Some of the instances actually are
Is there a limit to
some of the instances
Oh, yeah.
Will there be a term?
Yeah. But how do you know how much that was?
Well, I'm just,
Oh, you're
usually you need more information to break it down, but that's not like, you have to, that's what it is.
Is that how you got your?
On 10, you take NOI divided by ADS to get, okay, I think both ways. That covers the building also, that'd be really. And you have, I'm gonna go back to the mobile, but she might have opinion on that. So, based on what
Oh, 7. For some reason.
well,
Will there be extra credit? So now this is my underlying finance.
You're right on that.
So, you've got well, I don't know which calculus they have. There are multiple functions on it, so you have to find one that and for mine is G.
If you continue doing this,
Exactly how it Yeah.
It's just a simple.
I got to You're right. No, you're right. It says generate $5.
Yeah.
You had there No, well, he's paying attention to those. It's good.
I just read through the board thorough.
Okay, folks. Let's see where we can start off here.
Pretty sure I got it.
All right, now you have all the right answers, right? No? Okay. We're going to go through it. But so, put your pencils down in that regard. So, let's step back. I just thought it would be good to finish your lunch with that particular exercise. So remember we saw this morning, and we talked about where we are in the cycle. And of course, once again, I think those folks at Styles did a marvelous job. You asked some great questions. You can see they had to contend with the cycle. They started this when? So somebody bought it, Rockefeller or their predecessors, in 2007.
On the expansion
2007, where do you think we were on this?
Expansion.
Peak.
At the peak. Right. And if we look at the cycle again, we're probably somewhere here, and it took 8 years. 8 years. Now, that's long. The project I worked on, I think I mentioned to you, in Rockville, Maryland, I started my project. Chad, when did I start that project?
1991.
Good for you, very good. And it's still finishing up now. All right, so that's, oh my God, too many years, right? And so 1991 to 1996 was the zoning and the entitlements. That's 5 years. And then we started building and we got the theater and everything else done, but it took from 96 through, it basically stopped in 99 and then only restarted in 2011, 2012. Now they're finishing up with the office building and a few other
What was
things.
the lag between 2011? Because wasn't
So-
that the boom years?
The actual property that I worked on, the 5 acres, so adjacent to it, the company that purchased the property, Federal Realty, actually then built the rest of Rockville Center. And so they focused on other parts of the project, and then those crashed in 2009, then they came back and finished this, and it's like a third or fourth owner. And so this chart, of course, was deep within your book, as you know. And then I said, wait, now how do we track the cycle? And so where are we? I'm just going to quickly go through that so we can get to the Jones Lane page. And so JLL, I'll find a link for this here. They have their own special way of doing this, and it's great to look at this. Yes?
Sorry, one question. Every time I watch the videos, because the light is so, like, it's very hard to see, is there a way that we can turn the lights in the back off?
Off.
I don't know, if it's.
I don't know. Alex, you're next to the switches. Let's play with the switches.
In the back.
No, but that's on video. But he gives us a PowerPoint, which is
No, I
very
know,
clear.
I know, but
Yes.
sometimes it works.
This is fine.
This
We're
is
good.
fine for me.
That
You
is
can
good.
see.
Okay.
That's fine.
Sometimes like.
And yes, and you're right. I upload the actual PowerPoint, so you don't have to look at the video to see the PowerPoint because it's low resolution anyways. All right, so remember what they did is they took the cycle and turned it into a circle, right? And so the cycle really was, okay, this is where we hit the trough, then you're in an expansionary phase, or rather recovery, I should say, expansion, and then you hit the peak, and you go around again. And then you can see in each market, different kinds of things take place. So I thought it would be really interesting, especially since we look at office today, though it's a very unique kind of office, to cycle through, for the last couple of years, where different markets are. Because remember how I mentioned, states are in different places, cities are in different places. And this is the economic cycle for, I think it is, office buildings. So here we are at 2012, and I'm going to circle, I think, through the second quarter of each year. And look what's at the bottom. So that's that. West Palm Beach, Miami, in this area. So basically, office markets from 2009 even to 2012 haven't moved, right? Now, many of you may realize residential markets have led this particular cycle. And why is that? Because if you go back to the economy, where were the jobs? It was a jobless recovery. And so those who had jobs, those who had incomes, could buy the new houses. But if you don't have a job and you're not expanding your workforce, there's no point in building. But some cities did. And you'll see here, what is it that pushed San Francisco all the way to here in 2012? I think some of you have that in your hand. It's technology. I mean, it's all that. And here you see Silicon Valley and Seattle. So I'm thinking all the tech companies here in Silicon Valley, Seattle, Microsoft, Amazon, Austin, that's Dell. Oh wait, isn't that interesting? Pittsburgh's there. People don't realize that Pittsburgh has a tech-based economy and education. Houston. So here you see an interesting set of figures for the market. So now use JLL's way of looking at things, and the markets start to really begin to move. But look what's lagging here in South Florida. Has anybody seen a new office building built here? Finally, there's one or two proposed. But we didn't have that kind of job growth. We had a different kind of economic growth, if you will. And so here's the United States, right here, coming into the path of recovery. And wow, now Houston, San Francisco are really pulling ahead. And isn't that interesting? Kind of Boston and Pittsburgh kind of just sat there. Maybe that's good. Isn't it great to maintain the same position on the cycle for your product type? I think it is. So now let's see what happens when we go from 2013 to 2014. Things are starting to really get on fire with a lot of these markets here. Well, look at Dallas, San Francisco, Houston. By the way, I'll show you some figures. Houston has over 15 million square feet of offices under construction right now. And we're going to figure out, once again, using our REE data, does that make sense? How are you going to fill all of that space? And then the rest here, and New Jersey's lagging. Why do you think New Jersey is at the end there? Any good guesses? Wait, no. First guess, what? Chris Christie, yeah, right. The what?
Smelly.
No, I don't think that's
Hurricane
it.
Sandy?
Pardon?
No, I said Hurricane Sandy.
No, that's an interesting thing, but no. And we were thinking about office space, and really that was more about
Because
residential.
everyone's going to New York for office.
There's a lot of supply in New York, so.
They're living in New Jersey, but they're working in New York.
That's right. And then it is about Chris Christie because he didn't authorize that third tunnel. Don't laugh. It should have been built by now. And any of you who have taken Amtrak or taken commuter rail and everything like there, it's a mess.
What if the state can afford it?
Pardon?
What if the state can
New
afford
Jersey
it?
can afford it.
The money was all allocated by the federal government, by the state of New York, and by New Jersey. But the governor, Chris Christie, who made a huge mistake, that's not a political statement, it's just an economic equation. He took the $2 billion that the state was going to spend, and he said, you know what, I don't want to increase gas taxes, I want to fix the potholes on the roads. So now, we've got an even bigger issue. So, and they can't find the money. But so that's one reason why it's there. And yes, New York's got big jobs, and New Jersey didn't,
Well,
if you will. Yes.
you say also here that it's not too good because also the governor didn't approve the train that's supposed to come.
High-speed rail.
So, do you really think West Palm Beach is sitting here because high-speed rail didn't get approved earlier in Governor Scott? Probably not. Because look at, let's see, Orlando here, No, I think there are different dynamics. And so you can't just simply say it's the politics in one state, it's the high-speed rail in another. And high-speed rail, how many of you think high-speed rail, the all aboard, will improve the office market between the three cities in South Florida? Actually, I think it will. But the high speed between South Florida and Orlando, that doesn't change office dynamics. At least that's my opinion. So let's
What do you change? Atlanta is featured there in the rising market. I was checking in Buckhead, Atlanta over right there.
Here we go.
Yeah, in Buckhead area, there's an 100% occupancy. There is.
Yeah.
no-
I know Atlanta very well. I've done a lot of work there. And so this is a dangerous map to look at. It gives you the global macro view. But so, frankly, if I was looking at Atlanta here, in fact, if you took the neighborhoods, the office sectors in Atlanta, for example, those of you who know Atlanta, my guess is downtown is here, and Buckhead is over here. They kind of averaged it out, okay? And perimeter center is somewhere in the middle. And you can look at various office markets and see this is how you can begin to segue down into the markets themselves. Now, it's 2015, Houston, boy, there's something going on there. It may not be good. And so this is what people are looking at. And this is based on an algorithm, once again, that looks at the cycle, looks at the square footage, looks at the occupancy, and all of those things. So now, you may be not building 1 million square feet. You may not be building 100,000 square feet. You might be building 5 or 10 or 15,000 square feet. This data is useful because it gives you the view from 10,000 feet, and then you can go down to some of the numbers.
Is this mostly office, or is this everything?
This is just the office.
Oh,
I
okay.
just chose the office circles. You can go on, sometimes they have retail, the data is not always the same. You can look at it differently for residential too as well. So JLL's expertise, clearly very interesting, very worthwhile in the office market. Now let me just pull back really far and then we'll go back. So this was 2012. So 2012, you see what's going on in the globe, and of course I keep telling you what's going on in other parts of the globe does make a difference. Everybody knows their geography, don't you? Where's that? What? The Ukraine. Revolution, the gas pipeline issues, problems, Greece, just in recession. Hugo Chavez, screwing up things here, okay? Yeah, and in fact, the data isn't even worthwhile looking at here. Not that there isn't data, but it's not reliable.
What's the story with Italy? I thought Italy was not in that.
Yeah, so why do you think, here we got Italy, Greece, Portugal.
Well, they're all tied in together.
Unemployment.
Yeah, so you know, it's real interesting. Italy is the 7th largest economy in the world. In there, it's a lovely place to visit, isn't it? It's pretty. But yeah, there are all sorts of other issues where it's not working dynamically. I mean, look at tiny little Israel, it's just technology is pumping there, if you will, and we were doing well. And then you push this to this past July. Why do you think, now Russia, yeah, all sorts of problems there. Not to mention that Putin is the newest czar and has his own design on things. And so it's all about oil and natural gas, and that economy is fallen. Even Canada has a little bit of an issue there, if you will. But look, the countries in the EU,
Look
doing
at
okay.
Mexico. Look at
generally.
Mexico.
This affects money coming into the U.S. as investment money, doesn't it?
Well, and so this is interesting. This is just a global view, but so capital moves across the globe and will go to places which feel like there's something to invest in, if you will. All right, so let me show you now. Let's take a completely different break into the world of Greece. So, my bad. And what happened is apparently we didn't know how to download. I did a lot of connecting with people. So I got a warning bell earlier this week. Vishal called me up and said, Professor Trowan, Nova has purchased $50,000 worth of reports and time. And through either the accidental or whatever, half of it got used up in the last 2 weeks. So I was kind of blown away and thinking, oh my goodness, what's going on? And I'm going to show you what it is. So I basically blocked everybody's access on Thursday because I said, wait, we just have to manage this, okay? And so I realize now, and this read and explain it, how you access reports is different than when you
You're a
download.
full member or?
And if you generate a report but don't download it, they still charge us. And so, student A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and whatever, there are 8 of you, and bingo. We said, oh my goodness, all right. So, yeah, so, you know, someone took the prize here. Well, you know, it's interesting. I love it how some of you, and I'm not naming names or anything, some of you just, you know, identified yourselves in a certain way. And I know you probably just want like the drop-down menu, of course, but you know, it's there and whatever. But you can see.
So you have names attached to those applications?
Yeah, and everybody whose name isn't up there, they know who they are.
44.
Wait, you know more? Do you know
We're all
what
friends
happened?
here. You don't have to send the show.
44.
You show Anthony. Hey.
I'll take the blame. I was Mr. 44. I had problems downloading the link and I clicked
All
on
right,
the
thank you, Brandon. I guess
I'm
he's.
sorry.
Are
you-
I thought it was because I
Yeah.
maybe like left it logged in or like I was
No, I clicked.
didn't
Alright,
know how it
so-
It's all copies.
This is just a good object lesson,
Like one.
folks. This is a good object lesson in the law of unintended consequences, I guess. And I want to show you that all of this has real value. So what I did is I logged in. I've got a couple of different logins with different clients. So I've logged into one of my accounts which doesn't have a subscription, but where I purchase on a piece-by-piece basis. So, you know, you can get a market report. Let's just zoom in on Florida. Let's do Fort Lauderdale, kind of like that.
That's pretty much what we saw, I think.
That's right, that's right. And so, hey, we're choosing apartment. And by the way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the apartment and office and retail reports for everybody. And then I will hand out that. This way at least we'll know we'll get the right reports, okay? Because I want everybody to have the advantage. So unfortunately you won't have the live ability to get that done. And so, Rebecca, are you online with Reese right now?
No, I was looking to see what the report was that I downloaded.
Okay.
I wanted to know what it was.
So
I still have the Excel version of whatever it was, but I don't want to open it.
Reese does not care if you download the report or not. So here we're doing apartments, and we're clicking the Broward County. And I'm clicking Generate Report. Well, okay. So here it says, oh, hey, you know, they're pitching senior housing. And, well, it said to generate report, so they have the data. But, gee, I'm going to select what do I want. And this is important for the office report. And so, let's see, I think I'm going to get all of what, if you remember what Michelle said, the Metro class cuts. Okay. That tells us class A, B, and C. Just to get that alone, $249. Now let's see if I wanted to get the sub-market, $349. If I want to get the pipeline for all that new construction, another $249. What if I want to get their trend reports? What if I want to get the Metro executive briefing? Oh wait, what if I select all? $1,800 right there. So it was very easy, yes, to do
Okay,
that.
what, like, Autodesk has a student account where you could pretty much do anything that you would do on a professional account, except that it limits your printing. Like, you cannot print the models. If we have a student account, can they set a restriction for us to see?
I've asked them that. I said, wait a second. Reese should be smart enough to know that you're searching data, and then when it's time to click what you want. So we're in process to do that. And so,
Did anyone upload it to
so
that Dropbox?
wait, and so until I get that answer, I gotta do a pause. Yes.
I mean, the other thing is they can check the login date, and the reality is we did it
No,
while the guy was here.
they know every time and date. Yeah, that's correct. But see, here's what's interesting. So this is a lot. You know, you can just see it's expensive. Okay, and actually, if I wanted to do property comps, it's different. Unfortunately, they're not consistent. I pointed out to them, wait, what if I go to the comps, not just to the market area report? And here's what most all of you did, those who were on. You said, oh, I'm going to go to the apartments, and I'm going to choose, let's just make it easy again, we'll pick not Bakersfield, but Fort Lauderdale, let's see if you can find that again. And of course you can pick a submarket in Fort Lauderdale too. And for example, one of you chose Pompano Beach, okay? And so, hey, now I can do a search. Your account's not configured, and it'll say stop. Now, what's interesting, my account for that is not configured. So I'm going to log out and log back in as in my professor account. I got a lot of different accounts there. I got a lot of different things to do. Alrighty, go to my secret password. Let's see if I remember it. Gosh, I do. Okay. So now I'm going to do property comps. Let's go back to apartment. We'll select Fort Lauderdale. CFORT Lauderdale, excellent. We'll do the submarket, we'll do Pompano. Now I'm going to do a search. It's going to find it. Remember how Vishal did this and he finding the rent comps and oh gosh, you know, it was actually did this 10 minutes ago while you were doing your thing, but it's going to get there. So now you'll know, if not for this class, then next class, for your development class, how to get that. Great. So now it's bringing this up. And this one is different. So you can remember, you can go in, search properties and all that. As soon as I click generate report, generates the report. And you'll see that little logo for the PDF and the Excel. Reese doesn't care if you download it or not. We've paid. So that was the challenge, and now we've learned a hard lesson. It's not going to cost you individually, but now we understand how we can better manage it for you. Pardon? Oh, this is all about, right now I just chose apartment comparables for the Pompano submarket in Broward County.
They have sold or they have built? What kind of?
These all exist. These are existing apartment projects.
So what's the price? When you
One at a time.
before generating a report, can you see the data, or only you will see everything before generating the report?
Well, no, you can't. And
So
so
you
this is
don't have
what's
to.
interesting. So look at here, I can look at the data and see, oh, this is the Island Club, this is, you know, Golden Villas, I can pull in or out, I can change the number of floors on the property, and this is what he's doing. I can look at buildings that have an asking rent that is greater than that, or I can pull it back. So you can change all of that, but once you click, you got it.
So we actually can use the data to
Yeah,
generate it.
well, but so, you know, I guess you could look at this, this isn't telling you much, but it gives you enough information so that when you do use it, it's a smart tool, but not so smart that they don't get our money, or your money. Yes, who
What's the price on this thing?
Oh, so the price on each of these reports, this is probably going to be $300 or $400. And then, so every time you kind of click this and said, or someone said, well, I don't know where it went. Yeah, I've got a download folder. And oops, 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 and it's like ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching.
Well, I didn't see a price, I thought it was free.
That's right. And so what we did is we bought a subscription so that, and I have a subscription with one of my companies too. We just go and look at the data because we did a blanket subscription. But here, you know, we said, you know, once you hit that level, and I told them, hey, wait, what happens when I get to 50%? They said, don't worry, we'll call you. I said, when's it going to happen? He said, oh, it won't happen for about 5 months. Oops. Okay. All right, so now you see what that is. I just wanted you to be alert to it. So no harm, no foul, okay? And the key is we will get the information. And we'll get it so that you'll be able to have the Excel and the PDF, and you'll be able to use it successfully, okay? So now let's talk about the whole reason why we're trying to get information and try to wrap it into the properties that we saw today, certainly the apartment project. I don't know, we'll think about how we can get to the access deal. So the major components of a deal analysis, remember I will put this up onto Blackboard, really begins with doing the broad market analysis. Now, we talked about some of the pieces of doing that analysis, and that's what REES can do. It gives you the factors that influence supply and demand. Then the next stage, which is what you as developers are looking at whenever you're focused on a site, I'll call it a marketability study. And that's all about the factors related to the site. So look at the market, and then you figure out the marketability, if you will, of that individual site. Once you've gotten those numbers, you can then feed them into that back of the envelope, or the simple financial analysis, or the detailed pro forma that will figure out for you what your returns on investment are. Now, in our test, we did some of the simple numbers, and we'll go through what those numbers are. And so if we look at these items, then we're on our way to doing an analysis, and you'll figure out what it is on your major study. So let's, once again, take a step back. What is it that make any of these metro areas tick, if you will? And when I say tick, kind of like come alive, what makes things work? And what do you think is the fundamental reason that any city, town, or metro area works? What is it that makes the engine, the economic engine, succeed? What?
Location?
Maybe. What?
Job growth.
Maybe.
Transport?
Yeah, okay, no, it's interesting what you're talking about, but in fact, first and foremost, it's all about population. You need people to have an economy. And the truth is, areas that are smaller tend not to have the critical mass of what's going on. And then it's not just about the population, it's your distribution of population. And this was so interesting. So you listen today to what Stiles was doing, and their focus was on a target market. I call it the empty nester market, the baby boomers. Wow, certainly in South Florida. And if you look, in fact, I've done studies because we're working on another deal. In fact, there's a double bell curve. The double bell are the millennials, and the other side of the bell, the empty nesters and the baby boomers. So they chose at Stiles to go with the baby boomers. Now, I think it's pretty obvious why they did. Why do you think that was the case? What would be the motivation to go with that bell instead of the younger bell?
You're at the peak of it right now.
Well, we're at the peak of it, but
Wealth.
wealth. That's right, income, wealth.
Well,
That's right, they can spend the money. And because, yes, there's a trend now, and we can see it in a lot of different markets, friends and colleagues of mine that I know, in fact, and they say, why am I spending a $40,000 or $50,000 entry fee? Why am I paying $1,000 or $2,000 a month for the club? Spend the money on the apartment and go downstairs, walk one block. You can get any restaurant you want on Las Olas. Not the same club food, though. I've been to the clubs. It's nice food. But now you can get something that really can change the face of things, by the way. So they looked at that element. And that's what clearly made their market segment tick. And then we look at the households within a particular market segment. What's their size? Are they growing? Are they ranking? And yeah, the baby boomers are still booming, if you will. And they have the wealth. So you look at the age, you look at that, you look at their total income distribution. I know all these numbers, you're saying, what's this got to do with real estate? I got to pump it into you. If you know your numbers, you're going to be a lot better at real estate. You saw what Jeff McDonough and John Auerbach, they knew their numbers. It didn't even matter. You asked great questions. And it was like, you didn't want to tell you all the secrets, but they had it at their fingertips, just like I do or Dr. Forgy does on these kinds of deals and what we're doing. And of course, now it's different. With the baby boomers, employment may be less of an issue, frankly, because some of them are retired, right? But that's the key to, ultimately, to the job side of the equation and employment. So when you look at those items, that's what begins to make any area tick. Then we have something else. I call it agglomeration. Things just clustering, if you will. And you see it in the downtown. So while population may still be, oh, I want to move to the suburbs, we were just talking about that earlier today, there's still a sufficient amount of population in many urban areas which are, wow, clustering. Services, opportunities, all sorts of leisure and other items, and if they click together, it makes sense. So, you know, you can think about it in not just about where you live, but where do you get the best medical care? Not probably at the local community hospital, but you're going to go to a university-related medical center. And so we'll leave South Florida out of it for the moment because there's good medical care here simply because the age cohort and the population wealthy population demands it. But clearly, if you've got an issue in, I don't know, we can pick up any item, but clearly if you have a heart problem, you're going to go to the Cleveland Clinic. Now, the Cleveland Clinic now has branches here, but it's all in Cleveland originally. With Case Western and the University Hospital System, if you have other heart problems, you go to the Texas Medical Center in Houston. Certainly if you have cancer issues and other items, you go up to Rockefeller University in New York because it's clustered. And when you cluster, you get success and, you know, real advances in technology. Major employers, are they growing? Are they stable? Of course. So, you know, who are the employers that are growing here in South Florida? Can you think of any?
Not really.
Who?
I see them.
Let's think.
Direct buying large.
Well, you know, it's interesting. The major employers that are growing are, probably university and education, trade, and by trade I mean the port of Miami and related facilities there, medical, sure, tourism, perhaps. Orlando, all about tourism, clearly. And we could go through another whole lecture, but I won't get there today, about how the kind of industry that you have has a huge impact on what's going on. And the industry nature is important. I call them export industries. There's another term for them called basic industries. So tourism, let's go to Orlando. What are you selling with tourism? Yeah, the experience. That's the good. So when people come to Disney World or Universal Studios, they're coming in, they're buying the experience, and what are they leaving behind? Their money? That's right. And so way to think about that, folks. So when you look at your investment, when you look at your development, you want to place it in an environment where it's bringing in money and resources. And in fact, so that there are export industries in the area. And so tourism, clearly an export industry. Education. How many of you are originally from South Florida? How many of you aren't? And if you look at schools, they bring in people and all sorts of things as well. Yes, Alex.
Is Dr. Forgy still here?
Pardon?
Is Dr. Forgy still here or no? Did he leave?
He left the building.
He mentioned that now that school is starting to go online, that there's going to be less of a need to move somewhere in an area for an education because now you get the same education online. And I forgot exactly what he said, but that's a big thing that he was mentioning even now in the state of Florida at least.
So I have an opinion about online education. and you certainly wouldn't have the exciting experience that you have with me online, right?
Education.
Right, but you're right. So look, technology is going to change the nature of education. And then the question is, which kinds of education work best? And there are some types of education which I think will be very good online. And what are those? Things where 2 + 2 = 4.
Hybrid is the best way to go.
Yeah, perhaps. But when you, I don't know how you get the experience that we just had at Styles online, right? You got to touch it, you got to feel it, and it's a dynamic environment. And maybe the technology one day will be fine. We'll all be in Star Trek or the holodecks, and it'll be super. But you know, I'm waiting for the day, but I think I'm going to miss it. But anyway, so basically, what makes an area tick, or what I call the export of the basic industries? Non-basic industries is important to remember. So if you have a lot of supermarkets which service the local population, they of and in themselves don't grow an area. The CVS, the gas station, the banks, supermarkets, that doesn't indicate growth. It's simply a reflection of population growth.
It serves the area?
Pardon?
It serves the area.
It serves, that's right, but it doesn't create that other kind of business. Now, of course, places that have great transportation infrastructure, once again, I'm cutting on Chris Christie, but for other reasons too. But anyway, so that infrastructure is the key here. And so that's why maybe all aboard Florida make a difference. I-95, in fact, what's interesting is, I guess I could drive on 95 or the Turnpike, but I'm taking the Turnpike there. I'm willing to pay the premium, and the road's better, and it's less traffic. And so if we have the rail, we have that. If you have the port, all of a sudden, it makes a difference. In fact, we'll see the cities that grow have that. And then, you have to have government that works. Because government's critical, And you've got to have the incentive and other programs that stimulate the economy, because without it, things don't always succeed. So what do you think are the biggest areas when it comes to employment and absolute growth? What is it that is similar about these cities? Can anybody see a trend or a pattern?
A lot of cheap real estate.
Wait a second, and so
Well,
that's a
New York.
really, hold that thought, that's really interesting. But what else do you see?
Oil and movies and,
Vibrant population.
and government.
Oh, okay, so a lot of things. Yes, Alex, what?
Large industries in every city. Every city there has a large industry. Like,
Yeah, okay, but there's something different about them. First of all, the one thing you're all missing is geography.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
South.
1,
South.
2, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those cities are in the great state of Texas. Oh, by the way, who just dropped out of the presidential race? That's another story too. You are watching the news, right? Rick Perry, he ran out of money. But, and also those glasses just didn't do it for him. It did. If it did, he'd had the money, right? All right, so, but yes, but think about this. So look at those cities. What other characteristics? What are common characteristics? So I said, there's 5 in Texas. Anything else that looks familiar about them?
Oil.
You keep saying oil. You're just gonna have to let off on that one.
water or something?
Yes, great, yes, coastal cities. All of a sudden, trade and port here. Let me put up some of this. So,
Financial
ports. Yeah, well, yes, finances too. But in this particular case, the ones with the absolute growth, coastal regions, because they're the gateways too, as well, to world trade and global trade. Texas, what is it about Texas, actually? So, you can criticize it, but Texas does something great. First of all, it's cheap. You're right, to live there. Taxes are low. It draws in population, and that alone is an incentive. Now, it means that states around it may not succeed, and it's perhaps a zero-sum game, but for Texas, it works. And that's a great, philosophy to have. And gateway is a little bit different than major port cities. So, for example, wait, where was that? Let me see if there's another city there. Yeah. So, if you look at that, and let me go back there, and the 2 of them are the largest ones. Gateway. Tell me, what's a gateway city that isn't located on the coast?
Atlanta.
Huh?
Atlanta.
I thought you'd say it first. But anyway. I know. But yes, okay, because the airport, the busiest airport, at least by passenger volume, in the world. And that creates distribution hubs and everything. So all of a sudden we say, okay, so here are these. We said they're, frankly, let me see, am I one ahead? Let's see, go back, I'm sorry, I missed the slide. There we go, okay. So now we go back to, when you're looking at this, there's Atlanta, because it's got the gateway, if you will. Actually, this is transportation, the Inland Empire of Southern California. So it's cheaper than in LA. Distribution for the 20 million people that live in the LA basin, that works. So just think about cities in a different way, and then, once again, think about your neighborhoods as well.
Go back one.
Sure.
If you look at these top 10 these areas, they have a good percentage of highly qualified migration.
Yes,
I
so,
see that.
yes, population growth, migration in the broadest sense of the word, of all different levels of the spectrum of economic and demographic, which actually creates prosperity. Diversity actually does function in a successful way in this regard. I'm very much in favor of pointing that out. So, all of a sudden, you look at your city and say, all right, I look at my site. Well, what's the competitive position within all these kinds of issues, right? What are the demographics and the analysis? That's why I say when someone says to me, I don't understand why REE is important, because it's going to tell you some of this information and you be smarter. And I can assure you that John Auerbach and Jeff McDonough and the others, they got those numbers, and then they hire someone to confirm the numbers. Reinhold, in fact, good local market experts, if you will, and they can figure what's going on. So basically, I'm getting to this particular point because the deal that you're all going to be working on. You're going to do a major project study. I'm going to break you up into teams. We're going to evaluate sites. Ultimately, revise on the components of the market analysis. And so if you look at the market analysis, I'm going to just put this whole list up, make it a little bit easier for you here. All of these things have an impact, right? Now, direction of growth, what's going on, and all of these items, they're looking at that for the project that we saw today, right? Where's the widest market acceptance? They have a challenge, because as I talked to John, they sure as heck didn't want to make 39 different apartment plans. But it just happened to come out that way, so they're going to figure out how to do that. And they were fortunate because there was no competition. Their timing was right because they bought it actually at the bottom of the market where they were able to figure out what to do with it. And then more, yeah, you're gonna have the right financing. What's gonna put all this up? You look at your demand, your supply. We're gonna figure out equilibrium in just a minute and see what goes on there. And so you apply all these items, then you can reach some conclusions. What's the competitive position of your price? Every time when you look at a property, where does it sit within the marketplace? And so that's why I'm trying to think who is asking questions. I think Tula was asking that about, once again, you can't compare 1 acre versus this acre. You can compare the characteristics, you can compare the zoning, you can compare what you can fit on the property. All of that now makes a big difference. The type of product that you build makes a difference. In fact, when I was walking, and it's just tough, it was hot today, of course, but when you're looking at all that product, you can see there was quite a few high-rises. Right? What's in them? Are they the same? Are they condos? Are they apartments? Are they rental? Are they, what's going on? That's important. Figuring out your price points. Target market, they got that down. Features and amenity, and that's why I said, if you differentiate your product, you'll make a difference. Don't ask me what that differentiator is, but you will find it. And then you have to figure out what we call absorption and capture rates. In fact, we'll get to it when we do our retail. We'll tell you how you figure out a capture rate and determine what I call the go or the no-go decision. So a lot of what we're talking about, even when you say, wait, is this a market class? Actually, you'll get that from the professor, and I've forgotten his name, but it becomes the first step. It tells you whether there's ease of market entry. Whenever I see a deal, I figure out, can I get into it? Oh, by the way, if the barriers to competition are high, that may be good too. But hopefully they're high for everybody else and low for me in doing that kind of deal. And then, if I do it, maybe I'll be able to pinpoint time, determine my growth, and assist with looking at all these other aspects of what goes on. So you are, in effect, going to be underwriting a deal. So you got to think of yourself as the analyst in this particular case, but we're always underwriting these deals. And so when I break you up into teams, someone's going to say, what's the vitality of your area? What are your rents? What's your rent growth? What's your length of time? What's your capture rate? What's your profile? What are all those things? And then you're going to go even deeper and look at the sub-market in there. Is that a question? Or just a brush of the hair? Okay, great. It's looking better all day. Okay, great. All right, so I look at history, and that's why when I pull up a report, in fact, here, let me just show you, just do a little sidebar here. So one of the reports that I will give you is this Trends and Trades. So Real Capital Analytics is another service provider, if you will. And everybody, I think I told you how to get in there. They gave you the broad summary for like the US or the Southeast or whatever. We'll drill down. So when we get our REE data, when we get our RCA data, we'll find out what's going on in the market here. Yes?
So are we allowed to go all in on this, or?
Well, you can go on. Yeah, Real Capital Analytics, you all have the subscription for that. They're just going to give you regional and countrywide data. I go on and I have access to the specific deals, if you will. And so in this particular one, which I downloaded actually just a few minutes ago, so here are all for South Florida, which is Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties, all the transactions. What's going on? You can look at the scope. So this is visually. We get the data also with Excel. You can look at what the cap rates are, what the pricing is, when the deals have been done, what's going on within the market. So it's a lot to digest. So you and your team will figure it out. And so I can look at my cap rates here and say, well, in the center there, you know, my median cap rate in South Florida for these apartment deal is 5.8%. So it was interesting. Remember we heard today from Stiles, they were talking about 5.5, right? Okay, and so, but now that's because the better deals, of course, have the lower cap rates. Remember, low cap rate, high value, higher income streams. It's an inverse relationship, if you will, here. And it's a little bit better than the United States as a whole. So we'll provide you with that kind of information. And then you look at who the players are. Who's your competition? Who's buying the deal? Who's selling the deal? That's good information to know. And then, what are the deals? And so the most recent one here, and I don't know if this is relevant, so if we find you a site, and Dr. Forgy and I are going to choose the sites for you, because otherwise you just spend the rest of your class time for the next 4 weeks trying to figure out what's a great development site. We'll come up with it. So here, the most recent sale on this particular deal, which, September 2015, and it's a little building, 22 units and $196,000 a unit. You can kind of click through, and we'll get you that data. And all of a sudden, now you can assemble this data in the Excel sheet, and you can sort it and say, hey, what's my value? You know, if I have properties that were built in 1938 and they cost this, now I can begin to see this. So this is a different take on data, but it also complements what you restated.
Is
So,
this limited access or full access?
oh, no, you don't have this access.
Okay.
But we will get you that data.
Okay.
That's right. That's another very expensive subscription. Okay, and look here, the last one. That's right. And so this is on apartments. We'll do the same on office. We'll do the same on retail. And now you can begin to play the analyst role, which is so critical for a successful development approach to doing things. Now, you're kind of the novice developers, right? So let me see if I went back here. I think I went back by accident on one or two items. Give me, I didn't click in the right place. Let me just click here. Your patience. Here we go. A lot of charts, a lot of slides there. Here we go. It's the next slide. That's what I thought. So I'm going to give you what I call some basic advice. I guess this is pretty fundamental, like a Boy Scout thing, you know, be prepared, right? Work with experienced people. It's always going to be longer. It's always going to take longer, and whatever, isn't it? For any of you who have been in any shape or form in the development business, you know that's the case. And you know, it's important sometimes to realize why this is the case. So let's go through different parts of the deal. With site acquisition, of course you've got to analyze the price, right? Yes. You're going to have problems with sellers. You know, I say these things over and over, and everybody says, oh yeah, but I've got a really big deal, but maybe you don't. So you remember that for Stiles, the property is an L-shaped deal. And this is why the building ended up in the unusual configuration that it did. Now, they made a nice turn with a circular bend at the corner. That's great. But I don't know if you heard John Auerbach. He said, can't fit any furniture in here, but it sure looks nice. So, you know, you have to sacrifice functionality sometimes for the deal.
He mentioned too that because the way the windows were, that they have to use certain types of blinds that are going to cost an extra $200,000 on the project because the way the building's rounded, they can't get the tracks for the blinds in one track. So he's mentioning that too. That
so the alternate or the ad alternates that Meredith was talking about. So they're trying to figure out where do they need to spend it. That's right. And where do they then take away? What we didn't see is where they took away. And so, for example, I asked them. I said, all right, so why do we have Whirlpool in here? Anybody look at that? Anybody want to guess why Whirlpool appliances were in there?
The size of it.
Well, no, it's not about size. You can fit any size thing in any size unit. Alex, somebody else, because you're
Attractive amenities.
Well, maybe, but I mean, it could have been GE. It could have been anything. But why do you think they ended up choosing that particular brand? I mean, it could be any brand.
Price.
So it isn't about price. In this particular case, in fact, it was what else? What do you think it is?
I think because it shows that it's a higher quality, but it costs the same as much, or it costs less than, it's much more of the cost thing. You're getting more for your money.
Well, and it's interesting, so that's closer,
I
but,
think they made a good deal with that supplier, they could make a deal with that.
yeah, okay, but see, this is it, so you're answering, you have all the right answers. But here, now let's go back to our market, actually. So their market is the empty nesters, and remember, they differentiated the building into 3 different tiers. Call them basic, the mid-level, and then, first class.
They recognize that premium.
Well, they do, that's right. And the first thing, oh, but guess what? And it's something you probably wouldn't guess. And the highest functioning, the best product is probably Electrolux. They actually did competition between GE, Whirlpool, and Electrolux. Now, of course, they could have gone to a big wholesaler. They probably could have gone seriously to Best Buy or Richard, PC Richards, or any of those other places and gotten a huge bulk deal. But their issue was they wanted to make sure that the market they're targeting would click, have a perception. And what, by the way, Electrolux now owns most of the GE product, but that's a different thing. But GE, you've heard of their monogram appliances, maybe some of you, the luxury appliances. Well, guess what? That wouldn't fit. The sizing was different. So all of a sudden, what, they've got to do different cabinets and the whole thing up on the penthouse and upstairs? That's too much money. Okay, so now let's go to Electrolux. Nobody knows from Electrolux. But now Whirlpool Corporation also happens to own KitchenAid. And a lot of the baby boomers see KitchenAid, they've got great appliance lines, the perception is, so in the top tier units, exact same size, but different branding, they're putting KitchenAid appliances in. And so all of a sudden, they've differentiated their product, they can charge a premium, and it didn't cost them any more. So, you go back to this and you look at that market and you figure, oh my goodness, how do you now create something branded that's different for you, if you will? All right, so look, the regulatory process, any deal you do, if you buy a site, something's going to happen with, you better know your local partners, if you will. So this is all about the process. They were very lucky they didn't have to go to a public hearing. Very fortunate. I love my neighbor, but not when I'm trying to get an approval for my project, right? So, and I've been to many, 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 many zoning meetings, and as I said, it's an important process. It's good to engage the community, but as developers, you want to control that process in the best way you can.
Without the hearing, how does the public have a voice?
Well, the public has a voice for a simple reason.
They
Now,
can file a paper and they can still.
So if the zoning truly were as of right, the public doesn't have a voice, but enough people get up and raise their flag or rabble-rouse, it has a perception on the elected official. But many of these communities have what they call planning commissions, zoning boards, and others that are part of the approval process. And what they went through at Style was an administrative review. They never hit the public. But most people can't get that far. And if you want a zoning change or a plan change, well then you engage the people. When I did my Rockville Center project and I had to get 5+ million square feet, and it wasn't zoned for it, we engaged them. And we said, hey, this is going to be better for the community, and we had to help build the case for it. Yes?
Yeah, I don't understand why they're in Fort Lauderdale, they're developing, there are a few around Las Olas, good buildings, and there is this mall that is waiting to foreclosure. They sold for $1, and nobody have even the one on the river, the riverfront.
So look, if we'll get to this, I will bring in one of my next lectures. It's great to look at aerial photos of cities and to overlay a zoning map. And so here, the zoning may have permitted one thing, and here it didn't. Or what may be the fact is that you have tenants, owners that simply want to do something different. You may have this tenant, the one that got foreclosed on, or the owner, because they're indebted and they can't get it, they're bankrupt, and the bank takes over it and they don't know what to do with property. So that kind of thing exists everywhere, and that's why they look property next door, but they couldn't figure out how to make that deal work. It was easier to simply to focus on the property that they could control. So, you know, that's part of it, and it's just the process. When you do anything in real estate, it's amplified or magnified. So, market analysis, I gotta say the first one. When it looks like it's obvious, everybody else can see it too. So you've gotta somehow figure out what you're looking at. Now, I always say develop towards the higher end of the market. Not because you have to develop the most expensive thing in the market, but you want to develop something that pushes up either value or is part of a market that is moving up. Which doesn't mean you shouldn't be developing if there's an opportunity for what I call workforce housing or different target segments. You have to see if workforce housing, well, is that market growing? Is the community going to help support it, like our project in South San Francisco, where we're getting funding. We're getting $1.something million just from the local affordable housing agency to help put 14 units into one of our buildings. Great. So that's important, but that's a way of focusing on the market. Now, this is a pitch for me. Choose a good consultant, right? But no, seriously, you heard that Styles chose, even though they know the market, they went out and got the best market consultant they could, because their third-party intelligence actually helped. Take the time, figure out what it is, and make sure you identify the competition. So the great thing about these REEs and other things is it figures out the competition for you. So once again, we'll see these things. All I'm saying is really choose the best team, folks. That's all these slides. And if you get the right people, then it makes a difference. Remember, now this is design and construction, but Styles said they got the best legal advice they could, even though they know what's going on. When I've done my deals, I hire the people who know what to do. And they know the people who know what to do as well. And then when it comes to financing, so it's interesting, the two different kinds of financing, A&D, acquisition and development financing, if you will, which is really the construction loan, the temporary financing before a project is stabilized or completed. And when that project is completed, then you get the permanent financing. So once again, just about relationships.
Sir, question.
Yes?
So you putting together a package for a proposal, and you do a study and all that, those soft costs you incur. When you look at it and for funding purposes, when they say the land plus the cost of construction, would that get rolled up into the cost of construction?
Yeah, so all right, so what Carol's talking about, everybody know what soft costs are. Soft costs as opposed to hard costs. Hard is, you know, the actual buildings you own. And the soft is the engineer, the architect, the legal, the environmental consultant, the zoning council. Those are the costs that basically help you to get the building built. And you add the two together, it's your total construction budget along with your contingency, your developer's fee. If you recall from the Styles budget today, they had their own development fee in there. That wasn't their profit. Remember, his profit is that they get the difference between the value of the building going in and a higher value, lower cap rate on the building going out. That was just basically paying them for the work that they're doing. It's a development management fee. And so all that, yes, is the total cost of the building. And so when you look at our example problem there, we said, oh, we're going to rehab a building and $350,000 to buy it, $100,000. So what are all those costs? That's your cost that you hope the lender will lend against. And when you're looking at loan to cost, then that's the budget. And if they approve all those items, they don't always approve all those items, then they'll figure out their loan based on that. And that's where the construction loan comes from.
So as a general partner, you have to have the funds to take care of some of those soft costs. And that's separate from the equity that you need to put up as your percentage to go with your limited liability partner?
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. And so, yes, you generally don't get the project finance until you've got the deal figured out and in place, so you're spending money out of pocket, and then hopefully you can get paid back for some of those expenses. Not 100%, maybe 70% or 80%, depending on the loan to cost ratio. And that's why you got to cover that and probably the interest too as well, though there are tricks of the trade, we call them interest reserve, to get you there. And when the building is finished, when it stabilizes, when they lease up that apartment building, frankly, that point of stabilization, where they don't have to do the incentives, that's when they want to put the permanent loan onto the deal. And that permanent loan is towards the bank, whether it's Wells Fargo or PNC or any of the other banks, and they'll do loan to value, remember? And so if you've done it right, the value is going to be greater than the cost. So all this is just looking at those kinds of items. So it's kind of, in a way, this is your checklist. And then you are the equity capital. And if you don't have any equity, you might be able to provide sweat equity. It's like I'm sweating right now, but clearly that's the work that goes into the deal. And there's value to it. Figure out that value and pitch it, if you will. And figure out how much you got to give. Yes?
Does it ever happen, say you buy the property in cash and then you get the loan for the full construction loan and don't put any money into that? Just get
Sure. Isn't that a nice scenario where you can cash out? I mean, there are ways. So often the value that you can create through the entitlement process can make that happen. So we're working on a piece of property on the north side of Fulton County, actually up in Roswell. So you know where that is, Carol. And so we've identified a property, and we know what the price is, and our partners took it through the rezoning process. And so let's just make up a number. If we bought the property for $100,000, then you could only put 3 houses on it, and we go through the zoning, and it costs us 20 or 30 grand or whatever it is, and now I can put 40 houses on it. Then I've created value there. And so, let's see, I'm going to get an appraisal. They're going to appraise that value now based on the new zoning. And so when we put it into the partnership and we look at our other costs, our expectation and hope doesn't always work is that the bank then will lend against the total cost, and in this case, the value we've created in the deal. But the way you do it too is you kind of say, well, I did this, then I sell it to this entity, which actually pays that value. We take the profit from that, we put it in this pocket, and then we come over here and we get the lender to lend against the cost here. And so in effect, it pays too. It's a great scenario, it doesn't always work, but you can actually cash out. It's very rare to have nothing in the deal.
Yeah.
Because lenders really want to see that you have skin, as they call it, in that deal. And then the question is, how much do you give away when you have to deal with that? All right, so that's all just your basic advice, if you will, on doing these deals. So today we've looked at a different kind of office space. I know I'm throwing a lot of different concepts here with you, but we only have 4 classes to do this in. So today is your office class, I guess, with a little bit of the rental building thrown in. And I'm going to give you the summary of how to do an equilibrium analysis. And I might have to do some chalkboard stuff up here. We'll see how far we get. So an equilibrium analysis is fundamentally about figuring out how to relate your office demand to supply. So now, our friends at Axis, it's a different kind of deal, all right? They didn't just simply come up with the office space and then lease it out. They created a new business, which doesn't quite apply in this case, but it's the same concept, if you will. And what they were doing is relating that demand, and they're trying to figure out how that happens. So when do you think equilibrium takes place? Yeah, okay, good, fine. Right, when the market's in balance. Hey, these aren't trick questions, okay? But, I'm just trying to make you think about that, all right? Well, so when the market's in balance, great, we're in good shape. When the market establishes a level of occupancy and vacancy rate that seems to be in tune. And so, by the way, what do you think, all over the United States right now, what is a equilibrium office occupancy or vacancy rate for major downtown markets? I mean, are the buildings all 100% occupied? No.
75.
75? 90? Any other good guesses? Yeah, okay, all right. Well, if it was 75, then I'm probably in Houston and sweating bullets. All right? And if it's actually probably about 95 or something like that, I'm in Manhattan or in San Francisco where it's like 99%. The markets here are probably around 85, 86, 87%. And so equilibrium is kind of where things are, okay, maybe there's no need for new building, market rents are stable. Remember when you go back to that cycle, when the rents start to rise, means the markets aren't in equilibrium. That demand exceeds supply. And it doesn't matter whether it's retail, whether it's residential, whether it's office, the same sort of thing. Tula, when you want to rent in a new restaurant space, right? You're going to look for the place which actually, hopefully, you don't pay as much. But my guess is, it's probably the lower rent is an environment or a place where someone didn't want it before. You're paying a higher rent in markets where there's a greater demand, right?
And I usually go for the higher end.
Well, yes, in her business, I would, because it's all about, what was the term I used? Agglomeration, clustering. In fact, all those restaurants on Las Olas are there because it kind of makes sense to be next to the next restaurant. Think about it. Maybe you're all too young about this, but certainly when my parents and others, when we grew up, we say, and I grew up in the Northeast, if they wanted to go antiquing, you wanted to go to the shops and stores, go where they all are. In fact, you go next to your competition. And so when Stiles said, build the hotel next to the hotel, yeah, that's right. Or the rental where the market is. And it doesn't always work, but usually it's a good rule of thumb. All right, so remember, the point when and where rents start to rise. So if it's instable, in a stable environment and rents really aren't going up, then the market is at the equilibrium. But now when new construction commences, does that make sense? You start building, the market experiences real increases in rents, so you've got to look at where the tipping point is for any particular environment. And so I asked you the question, but frankly, for office markets, it can really vary very widely. So this is occupancy, and this is vacancy right here. And so if you have a high vacancy rate in your market, is that a signal to build? No. If you have a low vacancy rate, it might be a signal, or it may mean something else is going on too. You've got to be careful right there. And it may be that if you have a very low vacancy rate, like San Francisco, well, it's very hard to build. It's a beauty contest there. My partner, Shep Peary, built 580 California Street when he worked with Gerald Hines. They literally had to go through a 5 or 6 year beauty contest. And in fact, the commission, the board of supervisors, I forget what the words are, they had 3 different projects. If your project won, you got to build it. If it didn't, you're out of luck. And so there, supply has been artificially constrained by the governmental and political forces. And so just because it's low doesn't mean it's the best place to build, because you can't build. Okay, so whenever you look at an equilibrium analysis, and this is similar for all markets, you want to see how much supply is out there. So if you know that there is 5 years of supply in the marketplace, you're not going to build if the market can't absorb that kind of space. So we have a formula. How do you figure out the available supply? So you look at the vacant space in existing buildings, right? They're there. You then add that to the vacant space in buildings under construction. Some buildings are leased up, some are pre-leased. You look at the vacant space in the proposed buildings. Now, proposed buildings may not be as real as the ones that actually exist, but you have to acknowledge them. And then you divide the total by your projected demand. So let's just do a number here. Let's say I've got 100,000 square feet in the vacant space and existing. Let's say I've got 100,000 square feet, make it really easy, under construction. And now let's say I've got 50,000 square feet proposed. So 250,000 square feet are vacant. And in my market, it may be that every year the absorption, you can go to the local brokerage firm, CBRE, Cushman & Weather, hey, we absorbed 50,000 square feet in that market.
20%?
What was the number?
20%?
Well, that's right. So now, if 20% of that 250 is being absorbed every year, how many years is it going to take you to absorb that space? 5 years. Now maybe that's equilibrium in the marketplace. But I don't think I would build a building if I think it's going to take 5 years to absorb everything that's actually right there and then I'm adding to it. And so part of what the REE numbers and others do is help you figure out, does it make sense to do that? And so the result is you can estimate the length of time to achieve equilibrium in the market, and it gives you a clue as to when to build or when not to build. So just the trick of the trade, and of course, my favorite source is REE, notwithstanding how we generate reports, right? And if we can calculate the number of years to supply and figure out what's going on in a marketplace. So I'm going to show you a bunch of numbers here, just as a simple summary. And in fact, what I'm going to do is, so to make it easier to see, let's just pass these out. So I'm going to put them in front of you so you don't have to squint so much. So what I've passed out, there are 3 tables on this chart. And what we're going to do is, we have a pretend market here, in this particular case. And we're going to talk about the CBD, which is the central business district. And then we have sub-markets, let's call them the suburbs, and other urban cores. And they give us the total. It's a big market. You know, I just kind of made up the numbers, if you will. Everybody got one? I think is there enough back there? Wait. And so, remember in that chart we have, thank you, Alex. Remember that slide before, we were talking about what's existing, what's under construction, what might be planned, proposed. And so, here's the existing office inventory. So in this particular marketplace, 50 million square feet, that's a big downtown. It's kind of like a, I don't know, like a New York or some other place. And it basically has 5 million square feet available. So, let's look at that. That's kind of interesting. So, by the way, so what's the vacancy rate right now in the CBD? Huh? 5 million divided by 50 million is 10%. It's just like, this math, you should be able to sleep through this stuff, right? Okay, but now, by the way, so we look at this market. All right, sub-market A, 10 million square feet, 1.5 million square feet are vacant. Wow, 15%. And you can go through this. By the way, these numbers that I have here, I've added them up differently. And so, while this market has a 10% vacancy rate, it contains 48% of the entire market vacancy. So the reason why I put numbers the way I did here, if you look at your charts, is because this gives you a better sense of the relative size. I mean, of course, yeah, you can look, hey, 50 million out of 94 million, I see what its role is within that marketplace. But this tells you the relative relationship of vacancy too as well. I mean, for example, if I'm in this sub-market, oh my goodness, 20% vacancy. And this sub-market, oh, not so bad, I guess 8%. All right, so easy round numbers, available space, under construction, nothing here, a lot there. Projects that are planned, total projects that are planned and under construction. And so this is the kind of data you can pull down, what we'll pull down from REE, and you look at it. Then we get to an even bigger table. And so what we're trying to do is figure out, God, all those numbers don't mean anything individually. But when we start doing a little bit of math, it can help us understand what's going on. So let's talk about the CBD. I'm just using that as an example, and what I'll do is I'll also send you the Excel spreadsheet so you can see how I added up the numbers and did the formulas, all right? And then theoretically, what you can do, and we'll be asking you and your teams, figure out, in your market, what your equilibrium vacancy or equilibrium rate will be, all right? And you can, hopefully, if you can plug into the formula, great. Just like Dr. Forgey's SFFA spreadsheet. All right, so let's go here. Current inventory was 50 million. Remember from the chart before, we had 15 million that was under construction and planned. So the new inventory is going to be 65 million square feet. A lot of space, right? Now, this number, that's a plug. I just said, in most major metropolitan areas, the downtowns have about an 8%, anywhere from 5, 6, 7, 8% rate. And so this you get from calling up your great local broker at CBRE or Cushman & Wakefield. Hey, John, what's the vacancy rate been, through all the cycles? So, what do? What you want to do is say, well, gee, if I have a total inventory of 65 million, my equilibrium should be about 5.2 million square feet of vacancy. What do I mean? So for example, folks, you can do the math. If the current inventory is 50 million, and I have a vacancy rate of 8%, you can do the math. That means that every year we're going to have about 4 million square feet that are vacant, right? 8% of 50 million. But as we build the market and as it grows, in fact, the vacancy rate stays the same, but the amount of vacancy that's comfortable with that market size grew. So now my new vacant inventory is about 5.2 million square feet. Are we there? Everybody with me? That's the simple first math. Any problems with that? No? Okay. All right. So now, what we're going to do is say, okay, but what's the current vacancy? Remember, this is my equilibrium amount, right? Now my current vacancy is 5 million. And I'm building 15 million. So my current vacancy plus the new construction is 20 million square feet. So I'm adding 15 million, I've got 5. And then what I'm going to do is subtract what the equilibrium is. Basically, what the market we know will probably feel comfortable absorbing. So now, what this is telling me that the market must absorb, that tenants have to occupy, have to lease 14.8 million of that 20 million square feet to get us back to equilibrium. Are you with me? So, we did this across all the different markets. So, what does it say? So skip this for the moment. New inventory to be filled to reach the equilibrium vacancy. Excuse me, no, let's go this one first. That's better. All right, percent of new inventory in market to be built to reach the sub-market. So basically, if you look at this number, we've got 20 million square feet. I've got to occupy close to 75% of that. If the number were 15, that would be even 15%. So 75% of that space has got to be leased. By the way, we don't know how long it's going to take to lease that, do we yet? We're just looking at the number in the marketplace. So now, as it turns out, then I did that number and I said, wait, what's that 14 million? And add this all together. So this 14.8 million out of this 22 million is 65% of all the space in the market. It's empty, is in the CBD. But for the CBD to be in equilibrium, you've got to now lease 74 or 14.8 million of that 20 million square feet. Just different ways of looking at it. And the great thing about the numbers is you can look at all the submarkets and figure that out. And so even if you have a little 10 or 20,000 square foot building, it'd be nice to know where do you sit. Now if you have a Class A building, the numbers for Class A space may be different alone than they are for Class B and Class C. And what's really interesting about REES is they give you the class cuts, they call it. So you can look at all the space for either A, B, or C. And you can do that for apartments too, for A, B, and C apartments. Because A usually competes with A, B with B, C with C. Yes, Juan.
Can also this